What's up everybody, welcome back to Cartoon Universe. We just got the first episode of the second season of Fiona and Cake, which I think is probably one of the most interesting spin-off series in the entire world. For those who don't remember, Fiona and Cake started out as a sort of side story fanfiction within the Adventure Time universe. But in the spin-off series of Fiona and Cake, the two characters were made real by Prismo, who created an entire alternate reality for all of these gender-bent versions of Adventure Time characters to exist. This reality was placed inside of the Ice King's head. And when the Ice King was returned back to his normal state as Simon, the entire world lost all of the magic that was being powered by his magic crown. Season 1 explored Fiona and Cake as well as Simon, hopping the Adventure Time multiverse in order to see all of these different worlds that we visited in the original Adventure Time show, as well as some brand new worlds that gave Fiona and Simon some perspective on their own lives. The season ended with Fiona managing to make her world canon so it doesn't have to be destroyed, and magic is now able to function there without anyone losing their memories or becoming the magical versions of themselves. Season 1 was great, but for those who haven't rewatched it recently, it actually took a long time to set up this plot, with them not really getting into the meat of the story until the end of episode 4. And season 2 seems to be starting off about as slow, without a clear direction of what this season is actually going to be about, but a very fun setup with this first episode, which was mostly used to explore where these characters are now. First, in the land of Oo, Simon is enjoying his life again, with a renewed interest in connecting to the world as it currently is, instead of living the older version of his life in a human museum. As Simon, he's hanging out with Marceline and Bubblegum, and even catches them up on what's happening with Finn and Huntress Wizard. Back in the original series, Huntress Wizard was one of the many flings that Finn had, but a very small one without much story to her. She appeared in relatively few episodes, and even fewer of those were actually focused on her and Finn's dynamic. According to Simon, Marceline, and Bubblegum, however, Finn and Huntress Wizard have been in an on-again, off-again relationship for quite some time, which makes a lot of sense with the original themes of their episodes, which were about them kind of crossing paths without them having to commit to each other. Meanwhile, in Fiona's dimension, we get to see how everyone's trying to make their new lives work. Fiona still lives in her apartment, but with Cake now being able to talk and manage herself, she gets to live in her own apartment across from Fiona, where they wake up every morning to greet each other from the windows and then plan what they're gonna do with their day together. Not that much time has actually passed since season 1, so right now Fiona's in this little in-between stage where she's just getting by, spending a lot of her time just running errands for her friends in order to help them. The two people Fiona helps the most, of course, are her best friends Marshall and Gary, this world's version of Marceline and Princess Bubblegum. In the original Ice King fanfics of Fiona and Cake, Marshall Lee and Prince Bubblegum were both romantically interested in Fiona. In Adventure Time, Bubblegum and Marceline both ended up falling in love with each other, however, and are now in a long-term relationship. So it makes sense that in Fiona and Cake as well, even with all of the magic removed from their dimension, Marshall and Gary would eventually come together and fall in love. This was a big part of the season 1 story for the world that Fiona left behind while she was off traveling on these magical adventures. And a big part of the reason Fiona didn't want magic to rewrite her world's history is she was worried about the dynamics and friendships she had falling apart, was because she was worried about the friendships and dynamics she and others have being erased in this new world, including Marshall and Gary's romance. After saving the world and bringing in the right amount of magic, Gary and Marshall are still in a relationship and still working on Gary's dream of opening a little bakery on what seems to be an abandoned plot of land. The two have set up makeshift little homes there, as well as a place for Gary to sell all of his pastries, and it's become a cool little hipster hangout for all of their friends. Now, to help her friends, Fiona spends her days running around doing errands for them, such as picking up the ingredients that Gary needs specifically in order to make his delicious pastries. While Fiona doesn't seem to have a real job, she seems to be able to get by on the kindness of people who know her from saving the world. This has led to some discounts everywhere she goes shopping, but there's also some random bystanders who are still in awe of Cake and the magic she has, who will just throw money at her when she does her little transformations. And this seems to indicate that they're getting enough money to get by because of little incidents like this, as well as all the discounts they're given on everything they need like food. It's a comfy way of life where Fiona probably feels like she's doing what she was really meant to, going around on adventures that are meant to help people instead of working at some sort of stationary job where all she does is make someone else money. This was best represented in the show by Fiona's job from season 1, where she was supposed to be giving people a guided tour on a bus for her town. This tour is owned by Queenie, the gender-bent and magicless version of the King of Oo. And while most people love Fiona for the way she saved their dimension, Queenie in particular hates Fiona still and thinks that everyone else is eventually gonna hate Fiona again too, once the glow from saving their entire dimension eventually wears off. This presents the real problem in the show, which is that Fiona always wanted to go on magical adventures instead of living in this normal human city life. Season 1 had her coming to terms with this sort of life and appreciating the beauty of the universe that she remembers and that all of her friends remember growing up in. But that doesn't mean she wants to return to the grind of terrible jobs where she doesn't do that well and constantly gets fired. Queenie, as the parallel to the King of Ooh, actually seems to own a lot of property in this town, and by the end of the episode, it's revealed that this empty lot that the characters have been building their lives on is actually the property of Queenie. So she kicks them all out and takes all of their property as her own, claiming it as back rent. This will be an interesting plot to explore, but the real plot, of course, is going to be about Fiona leaving this world and going on adventures in other dimensions, particularly Ooh. And that's where we see a new mystery beginning to develop. Simon, of course, is a very important part of Fiona and Cake, not just in season 1, but it looks like he's going to be a main character here in season 2. Simon's usefulness to the plot is his connection to magical artifacts, and since losing the magic crown as the Ice King, his character gains a new relevance as a sort of expert on magic and magic history from even before the time that Ooh became such a big magical place. While teaching about magic artifacts at Wizard City, Simon has his lecture interrupted by none other than Huntress Wizard, who earlier in the episode was trying to help Finn. For those who don't remember, Finn accidentally got his back scratched by this weird looking plant in season 1 episode 2 of Fiona and Cake. We see little bits of this flashback in the episode, but for those who didn't remember, this actually happened relatively recently, showing not much time has passed since season 1. When Finn first got scratched here, he seemed fine, but he also mentioned that Huntress Wizard said never to come to this place, which he called the Heart of the Forest. When Simon reveals to Huntress Wizard that this is where Finn got injured, she races off there, leaving Simon with the warning to forget everything he knows about that place. It's a mysterious location that hasn't really been explored before, but what little imagery we see of the place surrounding the strange tree shows that anything that comes here just ends up dying, and that seems to be what Finn's at risk of right now. Simon himself almost touched this plant back in season 1 when looking for firewood, and it was a very ominous scene which seemed to be setting up something very important, but that didn't get addressed in season 1. That gives me faith that this season 2 story is going to be really good, as they've been planting the seeds for this since before the story of season 1 really kicked into gear itself. Despite Huntress Wizard telling Simon to forget about this place, I have to imagine that Simon will end up going there, probably with Fiona and Cake, where his expertise on magical artifacts will become very helpful. In addition to all this, however, season 2 also seems to be setting up Fiona to explore her love life. Season 1 had some hints of this, with Fiona getting out of a relationship, having a bit of a flirtationship with Hunter, and being attracted to certain versions of the Ice King. Season 2 seems to be taking us back to those little plot threads, with Fiona going out of her way to avoid looking at all of the posters of DJ Flame. DJ Flame is the gender-bent, non-magical version of Flame Princess, someone who Finn had a long-term relationship with back in the original Adventure Time show, but which eventually ended. Fiona and DJ Flame thus also seem to have had quite a long relationship, but that's ending now, and she's starting to match up with Finn again, who is with Huntress Wizard. Thus, I think a lot of this season will be about Fiona dealing with her feelings for DJ Flame, and working towards an actual relationship with Hunter. However, with the opening theme, we also get hints that we might be exploring some of the complexity of what it means for Fiona to be based off of Finn. While any healthy and happy relationship should be enjoyable for Fiona, this season might explore the idea that she is just a shadow of Finn, and that her love life and her relationships are determined by his love life and his relationships in Ooh. The opening theme seems to hint at this, with Fiona being shown not with Hunter, but with Huntress Wizard, where the two seem to be getting along quite a bit. And then of course we have this interesting imagery of what looks like Finn being transformed into Fiona. But so far, this episode set up a really interesting second season of Fiona and Cake, and hopefully even more seasons to come. But what do you guys think? For me, I honestly love Fiona and Cake even more than Adventure Time because of its slower pace and its kind of nostalgic or lo-fi feel to it, with less of the erratic pace that comes with the 10-minute episodes of the original series. But I know a lot of you have your own opinions, so fire off in the comments, or if you want to talk about the show more, come on down to the Cartoon Universe Discord server. Link in the pinned comment down below, and I'll see you next time.